person beside you.
Good evening. On behalf of the officers and members of the Kankakee County Branch NAACP, my name is Theodis Pace, President of the Kankakee County Branch of the NAACP. We welcome you to this evening mayoral forum for the city of Kankakee, who is on the April 6th ballot to hear their views about their respective platforms. Note, we are on Zoom and Facebook Live this evening. This event will be viewed by audience from a variety of places, and they will have an opportunity to ask questions as well. We would like to thank Mr. Steve Bertrand, the Kankakee Public Library, and his staff. Before we begin tonight, I want everyone to turn off all personal electronic devices. This event was organized by the Kankakee County Branch Political Action Committee. The purpose of our forum is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation of citizens in government. The NAACP is a nonpartisan, volunteer-driven organization. Membership is open to anyone. Please consider joining our branch. The timer for the evening is Paulette Crank, who's the branch secretary for the evening. Each candidate will have a 3-minute opening and closing statement. The panelist this evening is Mr. James Taylor, City News, Marta Perales, Political Action Committee committee member, Mr. Lee Provost for the Daily Journal. This evening we have Mayor Chester Wells-Armstrong and Alderman Chris Curtis. And we again would like to thank the audience for participating this evening. And we're going to start with the 3-minute opening statement with Mr. Curtis, followed by Mayor Armstrong. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to everyone that's in person tonight, and especially those that are viewing from home. I'd like to thank the Kankakee County branch of the NAACP for hosting this forum, and the Kankakee Public Library staff for providing the facilities and the technology of this important event. My name is Chris Curtis, and I'm seeking your vote to be the mayor of the city of Kankakee. I have been involved in commercial real estate for nearly 30 years, and I'm currently a principal with Nugent Curtis Real Estate that is located in downtown Kankakee. I'm not only proud to call Kankakee home, but I'm extra proud that my business is located in Kankakee. I serve the community in many ways, such as coaching, youth mentorship, and volunteer on several boards. I'm a board member and past president of Kankakee Development Corporation, which is a catalyst for the new developments downtown. I'm also a current board member and past president of Kankakee Drug Free, which provides a second chance for its clients and is an alternative to jail time. I also serve on the Hippocrates Board, which provides medical services for the Hispanic community and others that are in need of affordable health care. I will continue to serve on these boards as I believe they provide vital services for our community. I'm asking you to vote for me as mayor because change is needed in leadership in Kankakee. Public safety has not improved over the past 4 years. Our city's appearance is not reflecting of a thriving community, and many of the same homes that remain from 4 years ago remain boarded up, and many more buildings are falling in disrepair. Additionally, we do not have true financial transparency, as items do not go out for proper bid, all bills are being itemized and approved by the council, and additional funding has not been allocated to our pension crisis. Recently, our financial reports have not been filed in a timely manner over the past 3 years. This has resulted in our bond rating being suspended and was reduced from an A- to a triple B. And this cost the residents of Kankakee over $300,000. My experience with business ownership provides me with the ability to understand how payments and expenses and bills that can be difficult to pay, what needs to be done to keeping those expenses in check. As an alderman, I've been on every committee within the city, and I've chaired and vice-chaired several of them. This has provided me with a proven track record for real solutions, and I'll bring this type of leadership and these qualifications to the mayor's office. My strength is leadership is the willingness to listen to other ideas, evaluate them, and be open to change to help Kankakee grow and prosper. I look forward to answering your questions tonight on why I'm the most qualified candidate to be the mayor of Kankakee.
Thank you. Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you all for hosting this event. I am proud to have served as your mayor for the past 4 years, but let me tell you a bit about who I was before being elected to this position. I was born and raised in the 7th Ward, the oldest of 5 children. My dad is a Vietnam veteran, and both my parents were civil servants. After graduating from Kankakee High School, I married my husband, Keith, and we both worked while putting ourselves through school and raising our 2 kids in the 5th Ward. Keith became a union iron worker, and I earned an addictions counseling certification with a bachelor's and master's in social work. My social work career has been devoted to improving the lives of others. We are at a critical time in our country, navigating a health, economic, and racial justice crisis that no mayor or community has ever endured. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that life can change in an instant. I know this personally, having lost my baby sister on March 27th last year. Now more than ever, Kankakee needs a strong leader with bold vision, a heart for people, and grit. My opponent and his allies are aligned to the old way of doing business in the city, looking out for a narrow set of interests instead of everyone else. While he may have had financial success bringing businesses to the surrounding communities, being an effective mayor is about putting the people of Kankakee before profits. He has spent almost 9 years on city council with limited results. And I am concerned his interest in some of the most important issues of our lifetime, particularly around economic empowerment, gun violence, and racial justice, has only come about because he is running for higher office. He has never led on any of these issues, nor provided a concrete plan for addressing them in a meaningful way as mayor. Our team will continue to build on the success of the past 4 years. We have smartly managed the pandemic, balanced budgets every year, made City Hall more transparent than ever, lowered the city's portion of property taxes for 3 consecutive years, brought economic development throughout our 7 wards, fought corruption, and taking a strong but smart approach to public safety through technology and community coalitions. I am so proud of what our team has accomplished. At every turn, we have faced obstruction from the Kankakee machine. But I am not afraid of the machine. I will continue to fight every day for you and your family. Thank you, and I look forward to sharing more of my vision for our next chapter.
Thank you. Mr. Provost, you have the first question, the question going to Mayor Armstrong.
Okay. What would you, excuse me, what would you consider the largest obstacle to Kankakee's economic growth?
At this time, I think we need to continue working on the perception of our community. We have a lot of people in our community who create false narratives about our community, particularly as it relates to crime. And we need to continue to work on that perception and have more people in our community who are ambassadors for Kankakee and who champion all of the good things about our city.
Thank you. Mr. Alderman Curtis.
Being that I'm in that business, I can tell you the number 1 hurdle is our real estate taxes. That is the biggest hurdle. One of your 2 biggest costs in any business is labor and your facility cost, and that's real estate taxes. It's very difficult to control labor because you've got employees, you need them to do work. So that's why I was excited 3 years ago when I championed the cause of the 2% sales tax to reduce property taxes for the city of Kankakee, not only for the residents, but it also makes us more of a competing community with surrounding neighbors to attract business and industry to be developed here. Because when you're double the real estate taxes, they're going to go and look for where it's cheaper.
Mayor Armstrong.
Yes?
Oh, I got it. Mr. Taylor, you have the question, and the question is to Mr. Curtis. I'm sorry.
During the last 30 days, the City News has conducted several telephone surveys concerning who the residents of the city would prefer for mayor. What we discovered was that the city was not only divided along partisan political lines, but that there was a major divide along racial lines. I ask each of you, should your opponent win, will you support them to the best of your ability to join this city together and remove any obstacles to future development? After all, Kankakee City is the Kankakee County seat, and it should be respected and grow as such.
The answer is yes. The reason I'm running for mayor is because we do need to bring back the unity of our city. I believe we had that 4 years ago. It was mentioned earlier that we'd walk into council meetings. I don't ever believe us being Republican, Democrat, black, white. We just socialized together. We talked together. There was fun and excitement before council meetings. It feels like there's a greater divide this last 2 or 3 years here. So the biggest thing we do have to do is we need to come together as a community. That's all sides. That's east, that's west, that's south, that's north. That is all racial lines. That is all religions. So yes, the answer to your question is I'm running to bring back unity and cohesiveness to the city of Kankakee, because we only, as a county, prosper if the city of Kankakee is also doing well. But to answer your question is yes, I will continue to fight. No matter the outcome of this election, I will continue to fight and help unify the city going forward.
Mayor Armstrong.
That's an interesting question, and thank you for asking it. It's ironic that my opponent sits here and says that he would work to unify when he's been the agent of division. It's my understanding the night after I won the election, he was actually soliciting council members to join his group to obstruct me from getting things done. I have watched him when there's been opportunities to work with me, such as addressing our youth with the Kankakee United Initiative, providing scholarships and such to remove barriers for African American youth. He has not participated. And you know, it's easy to sit here and say that you would unify when you haven't demonstrated that the last 4 years. There's been a concerted effort to obstruct this administration. He was the agent of division, and yes, if I did not secure a second term, I'm going to do whatever I can to support whoever is in leadership and help the city continue to move forward. Thank you for the question.
Ms. Perales, questions to Mayor Armstrong.
Yes. If public funds were not an obstacle in obtaining, where would you allocate public funds?
Well, I'm very proud of the work that I've done with the National League of Cities. I'm one of the 2 vice chairs that serves nationally, representing small cities which are under population of 50,000. We have been allocated $14.5 million to the city of Kankakee, and we were able to get that done working a concerted effort of small cities in the country with the lobbyists that the National League of Cities hired. We are trying to elevate the needs of small cities. Some of the COVID package relief that was sent out was only sent to certain populations, and we understand that COVID has affected every municipality in the United States. So we were successful at getting that done. I'm really proud of that. That $14.5 million can be used in a variety of ways. One, we cannot use it for pensions. They have been very clear in the legislation about that. I would like to see us remove the vehicle sticker for the next term, but that would require a city council vote and support to take some burden off of our residents. That's been a source of contention. And I would also like to see us make some investments in public safety infrastructure.
Thank you.
And
Mr.
neighborhood
Curtis.
restoration.
Thank you. Mr. Curtis.
Can you repeat that question again?
The question is, if we got an infusion of public funds, where would you allocate, or how would you prioritize those public funds if you were able to get some extra public funds?
I want to start with, the mayor had mentioned that National League of Cities, and she's advocated for these funds. These funds have come to every municipality and company, city here in Kankakee County and across the United States. This is something that she says that she secured, but quite frankly, she's been going to these National League cities and costing the taxpayers lots of dollars by staying at high-end hotels in Los Angeles on these trips. As a private business, even myself, when I go and do these trips, I stay in the most affordable place I can find. I'm even frugal with my money there. But going back to the question of what do we need to do to allocate the funds, I believe we've got to put a task force together and involve the public in what we're spending those funds on. But I would like to at least see 25 to 40% of that earmarked for the people that have been hit hardest with COVID. And that is the people that have lost their jobs. It's the businesses that have been closed for extra long periods of time. It's the people that have without internet access to be able to try and secure new jobs. So I would want to allocate that into our hardest hit citizens.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Our membership with the National League of Cities, I believe, is about $2,000 a year. We have secured thousands of dollars in grant funding for the National League of Cities. As a businessman, I'm sure you understand that when conferences are held, I don't personally plan where they're located. I don't select the cities. I don't select the hotels where the conferences are held. I am very mindful of taxpayer dollars. I, have never overspent my per diem when I travel on behalf of the city of Kankakee. And in regards to the funding, I did help secure that funding because I've been lobbying Congress for months and advocating for small cities to be able to get direct aid, and I'm proud of that for Kankakee.
May I respond?
Alderman, yes.
Just because the conference is a high-end hotel doesn't mean you have to stay at that high-end hotel. Often I'll stay at a Holiday Inn that is maybe a mile away located. You're dealing with taxpayer funds here. You need to save. The biggest problem we have, though, is we've been asking for 3 to 4 years for the bills of these conferences, and we can't seem to get those anywhere. They're not in the budget, and when we ask for them by FOIA, we still haven't been delivered those amounts of what these conferences cost.
Thank you. Mr. Provost.
All the
question.
bills are approved by the city council.
Except for the credit cards.
We have a budget that we pass every year, and the comptroller has opened her office and made herself available to answer any questions and for you all to come and look at anything you would like to see.
I have asked the comptroller for those expenditures, and we still have not gotten them.
Well, so we're talking about transparency, Mr. Provost, you have the question. So Alderman Curtis, the more of local government can provide in a way of transparency is the more it increases trust, honesty, integrity in government leaders. So what are you proposing then? Then I'll ask the same question to the mayor.
Sure. And I'll just go back to that. One thing
That if elected and she being reelected.
It's very easy. And I'm not saying that going to conferences is not a good thing. It is a good thing. But it's a lot easier if you come and you make it out forth and just make it up front to the council member and to the public. Come forward and say, listen, I'm going to attend this conference in Nashville. It's going to cost about $7,500. How do you guys feel about that? Do you think it's worth the effort? But what we've got here is right now is one thing that I've been pushing for is we don't approve our credit card bills. We don't know what's charged to our credit card bills. We're supposed to be approving all finances in the city. All finances. And it's difficult. You've got several aldermen that have not approved the finances or the bills for the last 2 or 3 years because of delayed audits. This is how things slowly get in trouble. We went through this about 8 years ago with the Park District. It didn't end well.
Thank you. Mayor Armstrong.
Could you repeat the question, Mr. Pace?
The more a local government can provide in the way of transparency, the more it increases trust, honesty, and integrity in the government leaders. So if elected, re-elected, how do you propose increasing transparency in city government?
My administration is the most transparent this city has ever had. We've made city council accessible. You don't have to be in the room to know what is going on in city council. All of the meetings are on the website. All of the committee meetings are on the website. The budget is on the website. There seems to be a new set of rules for me when I became the mayor, and I'll let you all determine why that is. Mr. Curtis has been on council for 9 years. I was on council with him as well. This is the first that I've heard anything about a new process for credit cards. We certainly are open to having that conversation if that's something that the council wishes to do, but since there's no communication with me, this is the first that I'm hearing of that's a concern. We pass an annual budget every year, and there's line items in each budget, and we have done a good job to not exceed the line items, particularly for travel, in the past couple years especially.
Thank you. Mr. Provost, you have the question, and the question is to Mayor Armstrong.
How can Kankakee rein in crime, particularly gun violence?
Okay. Well, I can tell you that public safety is the #1 priority. We want all of our citizens to be safe. Gun violence is a very complex issue. It's very difficult to answer that in 30 seconds. Or 60 seconds. But we have taken a strong and a smart approach. Actually, our statistics show that the numbers of homicides with a gun have been consistent over the last several years between the two administrations. And they have decreased from 2016 to 20 batteries with a gunshot, batteries with involving a gun. We will continue to incorporate technology like ShotSpotter, the Ring cameras, and work with the community to strengthen partnerships. Did I run out of time? Okay. Did I run out of time? I did not run out of time. I'm sorry. So we've incorporated technology that our city has never seen before, like ShotSpotter technology. It allows our police officers to be able to quickly respond and pinpoint where violence is coming from. Doorbell cameras, where we initiated a program to reimburse residents who want those cameras on their doors. That was a direct result of feedback that we received from our Second Ward and Strong Neighborhoods home. And we'll continue to build partnerships. Also, I want to say that we've been doing some warrant details with law enforcement throughout the county. We're partnering with ATF for investigations and forensic services. We've strengthened our nuisance ordinance, and we have been working with our judicial system as well to go after these homes that are holding these parties with large crowds and they don't have a liquor license and those types of things.
Mr. Curtis, you, according to the timer, you got the question, and you have an additional minute also.
Sure. The first step, very first, it needs to be talked about daily, and it needs to be addressed with the public daily. In the last 3 years, the number of shots fired and the number of victims shot has rose annually by about 33%, or in the last 4 years, it's more than double than 4 years ago. It is a difficult situation in our community that everybody wants to address the most. As I've walked door to door and campaigned for the last 10 weeks, and before even that, that's the number one thing that everyone talks about. Crime, shootings. Right now, we're not talking about it daily. In fact, when we did want to talk about it back in September, it was too late of council to talk about it. We had all the council members together, and I was told that it was too late. It was 9:45 at night. It was time to go home. It's never too late to talk about crime. We need to deal with it daily. It's a priority. We can't have economic development without reducing the number of shots fired, and that can't reduce your taxes if you don't have economic development. So it's the number one priority for the city. We need to interact a community policing program that needs to work with the community. We need to use the city's chronic nuisance ordinance instead of using the state's ordinance. The city's has been proven to be highly effective and even better than the state's. I think we've used it maybe twice in the last 4 years. We should be using that weekly if that's what it needs to take. We need to let the people that are causing the problems know you are not welcome in the city of Kankakee. There are too many good people that deserve better in this town.
Thank you.
I'd like to respond to that. The meeting that you're referring to where I said it's 9:45 p.m., we had had city council, we had an ESU meeting that night at 6 o'clock, and we were in city council for almost 3 hours. You did not contact me prior to the meeting and give me the professional courtesy as the chair of the city council meeting to let me know you would like to extend the meeting. We also didn't have a chance to talk to the other 13 aldermen to see if they would be able to stay any additional time, as many of them work and have families and children they have to get home to. So I feel like you politicized public safety, as you have frequently done throughout this campaign. In terms of economic development, we have had an increase in shots fired calls, but our batteries with the gun have decreased, as I stated, about a third from 2016 to 2020. I go by data. That's what I report. I don't think that I have to come to work every day and try to have a press conference, which is not even possible with the media, as they don't have many reporters either, to talk about crime every day. We've incorporated technology with the Ring app so that when crime occurs, the community is notified of that. And the police chief puts out press releases as needed when we have incidents in the community.
Thank you. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you. As mayor, we'll stay for 6 hours if we need to stay for 6 hours to talk about public safety. There is no time limit when it comes to important issues. That night, it was Alderman comments when I brought it up. There is no reason that we have to end at 9:30, 9:45. If it takes till midnight to have discussions and then to come back and have a special meeting 48 hours later, let's do it. There is never a time limit for public safety. In fact, I think it was that special meeting and that night, if we talk about the doorbell camera systems, I was the one that suggested that, and we raised nearly $5,000 that night while we had the special meeting. It's those type of things that we need to continue to work on. I was hoping to have those in place by October 31st, and we're now just getting them out into the field. That takes way too long to take that chance.
I appreciate your efforts to do that. We had a meeting 2 days before that city council meeting. I believe it was held Friday night at Kankakee High School. You were in attendance of that meeting. The community was gathered, and everyone was given the opportunity to come share their ideas and solutions. So again, being respectful of the city council members that night, I don't think many people were going to be productive at 9:45 after having sat through meetings for 3 days. Just because I'm not talking to you per se about public safety doesn't mean that I'm not addressing it every day. I speak with the chief and the fire chief about public safety very regularly every day. So I just want to clarify that.
Mr. Curtis, you can rebuttal.
I would like to follow up with it. Why aren't you speaking to me about it? Why aren't you speaking to the other aldermen? It feels like there's 4 to 5 aldermen that are getting the information and the other 8 are not.
Anytime that I send out weekly updates, they go to every single alderman. You have not reached out to me for any information that you have are inquiring about.
That's not true. We've talked about the liquor licenses.
If there's something that you need from me, then you need to let me know that. You need to
And it goes
communicate
vice
that to
versa.
me. Absolutely. But you're the one that's saying that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
But I will use like the fire truck. If it's something that you wanted, you should have reached out to each alderman to try and process. It's no different when we did the sales tax, 2% sales tax agreement. I met with each alderman one-on-one before we brought that to the council floor, and we worked and figured out what we needed to do. But it's communications, not with just a few aldermen, with all the aldermen.
Okay, so thank you. Thank
Again,
you.
when I send out weekly
Thank you.
updates, I communicate with all the aldermen, and you, agent of
Thank you.
division, have had special
you.
meetings
Thank you, Mayor.
without talking to other council
Thank you.
members. You all call special meetings.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've talked about a lot regarding police reform and public safety. And so we just got into where both of you guys both worked on the property tax rate. So we're going to get into that. But Mr. Taylor, you have the question, and the question is to Mr. Curtis.
For the sake of clarification, once it was learned that the City News was going to be represented on this panel, earlier today I received about half dozen calls from individuals who, at least 3 of them I know are city policemen. They had a concern about a lack of respect and a lack of cooperation with the police department. I have no way of knowing if that's true. If it is true, what is the problem? And what is the relationship with the police department? And what are the goals as far as improving police protection?
Mr. Curtis.
The police department needs to know that they've got a mayor and a city council that is behind them at all times. It is a very difficult job that they're dealing with. It always has been a very difficult job. It's probably even more difficult now. And so they need to know that they have the backing of the administration and the residents and the city council. It's communication again. It's talking with the sergeants, the lieutenants, the patrolmen, getting the ideas from them. They're the experts in the field. If I'm mayor, okay, we're overseeing everything, but you need to let qualified leaders be in that position and let them run the police department to the best of their ability. It's their job. They know how to do it. Just as you let the legal department run their qualifications when they're reviewing documents and ordinances, and you let the fire department run their safety programs.
Mayor Armstrong.
Well, I think it's no secret that when I was elected, when you're elected, there's automatically a group of people who are against you, and that was demonstrated in our police department when I was elected. The chief quit. He never had a conversation with me. That hasn't seemed to be an issue for my opponent who's talking about communication. He never reached out to me and said anything. He just quit. This is a common phenomenon that we see across this country, quite frankly, when the first African American is elected to office. It has not just happened to me. It's happened to other mayors as well. In terms of morale, relationships require both parties to work at them. So when you have a chief that quits and a hostile force before you're even sworn in, that's problematic for the community. I have reached out to them. I have worked with the chief to, lift them up in any way that I can. It's not going to be business as usual in the city of Kankakee. Some of the things that they were accustomed to doing in this city was not appropriate, was not respectful, and I'm not going to support someone when they're not being appropriate. We are going to support them with what they need to do their jobs, but they need to come to the table as well and work with the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. You had an interview, Mr. Ms. Perales, you have the next question. Questions to Alderman Curtis.
This question has to do with our recent winter snowfall that we had. A lot of sidewalks off exit 312 were not shoveled. I saw people walking in the street. I saw wheelchairs in the street. Unfortunately, we have a lot of low-income people in that area. Do you have any suggestions on how we can prepare and make sure that we increase public safety on our sidewalks?
Obviously, the ideal thing you'd want is everybody to shovel their own sidewalks in front of their property and take care of it. I know.
And just to clarify, this is not about property. This is about the city sidewalks. So you're talking about exit 12 and in between like Maple and going to the east side of 57.
In front of the businesses?
Businesses, public. This is
Yeah.
like under the viaduct, under exit 12, snow
Oh, you're
around
talking
bus
as
stations.
you go underneath the highway there. You're talking
Yes,
there.
that's what I'm
Okay.
talking about. It was a very severe public safety
Okay.
issue this winter, and I wanted to know, if elected mayor, what would you do to ensure that residents are able to walk back and
Okay,
forth?
I thought you were talking about all the sidewalks in the city.
No,
Sorry.
just-
Okay. No, you know what, that's something that should be taken care of. I know that our Department of Public Works has I see it out of my office, there's a pretty nifty little machine that has a front brush on it that can clear off the sidewalks quickly. Probably doesn't travel easily outside of the downtown area, but it should be, if it has to be trailered down and clean that off, it should be done, even along maybe Station Street Bridge or any of the other bridges. So, yeah, that's something that should be focused on and done by the city.
Mayor Armstrong?
Yes, I agree. If you remember the last snow incident, I think we got 10.2 inches of snow in a matter of a couple of days. So I was receiving phone calls at home. I give my home number out. Several people in all of the wards have reached out to me, and when I became aware of those situations, DPW did clean it up. They worked very hard during that snowstorm. They were on overtime. They were working all night. Because the snow was continuously falling, they would have to go and redo the main routes. So they always start with the main routes because of public safety, so that if the fire trucks or ambulances or police need to get through, they can. And so that's what was happening. The snow was falling continuously, and they were going back over those routes to make sure that the public safety vehicles had access. But anytime there's an issue, yes, if it's our jurisdiction, we should take care of it. And to my knowledge, those incidents were taken care of when they came to my attention.
Thank you. Mr. Provost, you have the question to Mayor Armstrong.
Okay. Sorry. Since Kankakee controls the majority of the Karma board, would you push for a forensic audit of that agency to deal with past issues?
This actually has came up for discussion on the Karma board. The attorney that represents the board has advised that he doesn't think that is necessary, and it would be very costly. This is probably related to the Richard Sims incident. We had a member on the board asking for that. The audits have been made available to that particular municipality if they would like to see any of the records, the checks, the bills, and that type of thing. But our attorney on the board indicated that it's not appropriate, and what the board member was asking for can be provided if they would follow through with SKDO.
Mr. Curtis?
I do not sit on the Karma board. I expect that when elected mayor that I would be on that board, and so I'd be very interested into looking into a lot of those issues there. I can say one thing that will happen. The city council has 4 members, or the city of Kankakee has 4 members on that board, is Currently, the pay for that position is $600 to $700, depending on your title on that board. I think the public has agreed that it's just too much money. We would definitely use those votes to lower that. Bradley doesn't take the pay, and I don't think Bourbonnais wants it either, so we could lower that to $100 or less. And that could be money to use into a forensic audit if that's what's required and needed.
Thank you.
I'd just like to correct that. That's not accurate. The Village of Bradley representative is taking his pay, and so is the Village of Bourbonnais representative. And when that pay was increased several years ago, again, this was not an issue. Now there's an exception. There's a narrative that there's one meeting a month, which is not true. I had a meeting this morning today with Newton County and Karma, so there's a lot more work that goes into this role than people are aware of. But those entities are also taking their pay.
You got in, Mr. Alderman Curtis.
But it's my understanding they don't want to. The ordinance requires them to. But quite frankly, the public thinks it's too much money. It should just fall under the preview of the mayor's duties to do that. There's no reason, I mean, the public, it may be 1 or 2 meetings, but there's no need for that. Again, we just need to be doing this for the good of the community, not for the paycheck.
Thank you.
In
Mr.
terms
Taylor,
of the public,
Ma-
in terms of the public, the Karma represents Kankakee, Bradley, Bourbonnais, and Aroma Park. I was provided a list of names of people who did not want the board members to receive their pay. None of them were identified under our jurisdictions. I just
Alderman?
want to provide the facts.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor, you have the question, and the question is to Mayor Armstrong.
During the aldermanic debate, one of the candidates for office said that he was interested in spending some of the President Biden's stimulus money to the tune of $1 million per ward. What do you think of that recommendation?
That's to me, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I think that we should form a COVID recovery task force. We did bond earlier in the year and allocated some money for each of the wards, which my opponent was opposed to. There have been complaints, I've heard from several of the aldermen and concerns from several of the aldermen and the constituents about sidewalks and curbs and alleys and those types of things. So we did put some funding for each ward. We can certainly, if the community decides that they want to use some of this funding for infrastructure, we can do that. But I do want to let the community know that I'm working with Congresswoman Kelly and our representatives very closely for an infrastructure package as well. We do expect to have an infrastructure package passed in the coming months. That's been something that NLC, National League of Cities, and mayors across the country have been advocating for the last 4 years.
Thank you. Alderman Curtis.
I do agree that we should have a task force put together and should involve the community of how that money is allocated and spent. There is a definite need and a problem with our sidewalks, curbs, and streets. We used to be getting about $100,000 for MFT. Towards that, recently it's been anywhere from $40,000 to $70,000. Now MFT funds have increased to about $1.2 million annually. So I still would like to see us spending at least $100,000 in each ward towards that. Why I was against the borrowing of the $1.4 million for that was I thought $10 million was too much to go out and bond for, quite frankly. And in hindsight, with getting this package here, it proves true. If we hadn't borrowed that money, we wouldn't be paying the interest on it. We could be using some of this new money towards the infrastructure. But I do agree that it's needed and that we have to let the community and the task force decide how that's allocated.
Ms. Perales.
I just would like to say that this is the first time we've bonded. Usually every mayor bonds per term. We did not bond in my first term at all. And the 10.2 was borrowed at a rate of under 3% interest. So it was a very good rate.
Just because it's a good rate doesn't mean you borrow the money.
Well, if you want the
you.
sidewalks fixed, we have to pay for them
Thank
somehow.
you. Ms. Perales, you have the question, and the question is to Mayor Armstrong.
Okay, this is from the audience. The underpass wall at Brookbottom Boulevard is ready to fall, plus other infrastructure throughout Kankakee needs attention. What is your plan for this?
When I became mayor, I inherited the Brookmont Boulevard Bridge. I believe it had been in Phase 1 engineering for years as Exit 312's bridge. And we have applied for an extension to get Phase 2 done. and we have secured, we are working to secure funding for that project. This is one of the conversations that I have with our federal legislators all the time are the bridges. I worked with the Illinois Municipal League to get a resolution passed so that we can push for infrastructure to the bridges. We have several bridges in Kankakee. The River Street Bridge, there was crumbling concrete on that bridge. There's one in the 4th Ward that looks really bad. So we're going to continue, like I said, to advocate for those dollars, and we are expecting an infrastructure package in the coming months.
Alderman Curtis.
The infrastructure, it is crumbling in our city. We're a very old city. And so for those reasons, it's not just our curbs, our sidewalks and streets. It is our bridges. It's even our interchange 312 and our other interchanges. The radiuses for trucks are not made for 53-foot trailers these days, or for when they're smaller trucks. So yes, it is a priority for our city that we do need to look at, and hopefully the infrastructure package comes through, or whether we can even use some of this money. I don't know all the details regarding this new stimulus package, but maybe some of that money can be allocated to help finish Brookmont Boulevard. We're far enough down the path with being in Phase 2 engineering that we need to continue with that.
Thank you. Mr. Provost, you have the question. The question is to Alderman Curtis.
Let me find it again. Okay, here. Beyond COVID, what would you consider your greatest disappointment in Kankakee in the past 4 years?
Beyond COVID, what is this?
Not considering COVID.
Okay. Greatest disappointment in the last 4 years? I'd have to say it's public safety. It's the shootings. It's, why crime statistics have gone down in other categories, the number of shots fired and the number of victims hit and the number of shootings is too many, but the double it over the last 3 to 4 years is that is our biggest disappointment right now. We have to get that in control for the viability of our city going forward. Without that, nothing else can prosper.
Mayor Armstrong.
Again, I want to correct the false narrative. Batteries with a gun have declined from 2016 to 2020 about 30%. We had 31 in 2016, 20 in 2020. I do acknowledge that our shots fired calls have increased. Even despite that issue that's challenging in all urban areas in this country, gun violence is now being treated as an epidemic. It is. We are still growing. We have opened a number of businesses throughout Kankakee in the last 4 years. The 2nd Ward has opened businesses, Station Street Cafe, Donut Foundry, 4th Ward, Tractor Supply, Family Dollar on Jeffrey Street. The 1st Ward has opened a number in the Burfield and Remington. So that's a false narrative to say that we are not growing and opening businesses because of our shots fired calls. It's just simply not true. The data does not add up to that.
So, Mayor, the NAACP, we hosted a candidates forum with the village presidents, candidates in the village of Bradley. Bradley Mayor Pro Tem Mike Watson said that the municipalities in Kankakee should go their separate ways when it comes to promoting tourism in the area. Is he right?
I think that we are stronger together. I know that Bradley has the majority of the hotels in their municipality, but the reasons that people come to Kankakee County are not specific to Bradley. Bradley has a lot of restaurants, and they have a lot of stores. They have some more retail, particularly when the mall was open, but the CVB is funded by hotel dollars, and going to a restaurant does not promote people spending the night. Municipalities like Bourbonnais used to host the Bears Camp. That was a big draw to Kankakee County. We have a Frank Lloyd Wright home and different festivals like Merchant Street that occur over a couple days. Those are the types of things that tend to have people spend the night in the hotel, and that's where the tax comes from, is the hotel tax. So I just think that we're stronger together, and I would like to see us work together again with the CVB.
Alderman Curtis.
I would concur. When we work as a region, we're stronger as one. I've been doing real estate since the early 90s, and I remember a time when every municipality was very divided. Bradley was trying to do their thing, Kankakee was trying to do their thing, and everybody was staking their own claims. When we can work together as a one entity and work as Kankakee County and not just as individual municipalities, we are much stronger. I believe the city of Kankakee is probably the second highest revenue generator for hotel tax. So I will agree with the mayor on this one. As she mentioned, you know, Bourbonnais Bears Camp that was in Bourbonnais, a lot of those people stayed in the hotels. We've got the state parks. We've got a lot of things that we can all work together on, and we're better as one than individuals.
Okay, as we matriculate in the forum, I'd like to ask each candidate sort of respect the timer and the allocated time that you have, and the moderator will give you additional time. However, respect the timer. A follow-up to that question, Alderman Curtis, what is your view with Mayor Pro Tem of Mayor Watson? What is your view on regionalism?
Regionalism?
Yes.
I think it's one of the strongest things that we have. I think we need to be working, as I mentioned, together. You know, Bradley, you know, we cross over from Kankakee to Bradley. I'd like to see us work together with Bradley and do something with Schuyler Avenue. It's the entrance to their city. It's the entrance to our city. If there's a way we could team up and make that a project that benefits us both, that's a good thing. Again, just because Bourbonnais may be getting the majority of the housing stock, we still need people to work in the majority of the factories that we have in Kankakee. So it all works together as one. I've never really kind of looked at us as just Kankakee, Bradley, and Bourbonnais. Even when my mom comes to visit from Michigan, she doesn't quite know which town she's in as we're driving around, whether it's Bradley, Bourbonnais, or Kankakee, and that's a good thing. I think we, as a tri-city area, we're better if we're known as one.
Thank you. Mayor?
As a metro area, I think that each municipality has strengths, but again, I think that there are areas where we can partner. My opponent mentioned actually an idea that I've had, and we've already met with Bradley to extend Schuyler Avenue streetscape from Kankakee to Bradley. We would love to do that project with them. We met over a year ago about that with both of our engineers. So again, I think that it's important that where we can work together, that we do that. Each municipality brings their own strengths to the table, and we can be more impactful working together.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, you have the questions to Mayor Armstrong.
We've been publishing the city news for about 50 years, so I don't think quite as quickly as I used to, but I don't think as many useless thoughts. Now, earlier, we spoke about the millions of dollars that were coming to the area from the Biden program, and you both sort of skirted the area because you talked about a task force. My question is, based on the fact that the Kankakee County NAACP is the largest African-American oriented agency in this county and has been for several decades, your place at this table, this kitchen cabinet or whatever it would be called, do you commit, each of you, to having a viable voice from the Kankakee County NAACP as a part of your task force? And I'm not speaking of just sitting there, but having a meaningful and respected input into how this money will be spent.
Absolutely. I value our NAACP branch. I was a member for many years and served in leadership in this branch. And I reach out to Theotis, the president, frequently, particularly about criminal justice issues and police reform and those types of matters. So yes, it would be, we want a diverse representation of the community giving input. We've done that in a number of ways with surveys, with our Citizens Advisory Board that we've created under the city that provides opportunities for residents, business owners, social service agencies, civic organizations, and anyone who wants to be involved to do that. I just spoke with a gentleman from the 2nd Ward a couple days ago, and he said he had some ideas about the neighborhoods, and I referred him to our ECDA department. We need the community to be involved, and I welcome that, and we will continue that practice moving forward.
Thank you. Alderman Curtis.
Absolutely. We do need to utilize the NAACP. We need to use the black church leaders as part of that discussion also. The NAACP has produced several great things, including the 10 shared principles, the KCCC RT response team. in case a crisis situation happens. So many great ideas have come out of the NAACP, and we need to do that. But I'd like to see, you asked about what do we do with the dollars, maybe some, again, I don't know all the details, but maybe some job training dollars would be great for that, because that's where we need to help focus the hiring of Latinos and African Americans into the jobs. Sometimes it's the job training that falls a little short. I'll give a good example is right now our fire department is looking for candidates. There's got to be training that has to be done and testing before they can even apply for that department. Maybe some of that money can be used for training in the community. Because one of the great things is the fire department, what a great job. Well-paying, great benefits, and we can help our citizens right here to be part of with job placement
Thank
right
you,
in our own
Alderman.
city.
Mr. Pace, I'd just
Yeah.
like to add to, I've been talking with our ECDA department about having a job fair with our unions. Our unions are very short staffed right now. They don't have a lot of people going into the trades, and we do have a construction to career program from KCC. I think this would be a great opportunity to partner for workforce development because that's going to address some of the equity issues that we've had, not only in this community, but this country over a number of years. And we can create the workforce that we need and give them the skills that they need so that these jobs are available, particularly as infrastructure packages come down and more projects start. We want to make sure that the people who live here are on those jobs.
Thank you. Alderman, anything else?
No.
No. Ms. Morales, you have the question. His question is to Alderman Curtis.
Okay. Housing issues affect Black and brown communities differently than white communities. Considering some of our historical challenges when it comes to equity, do you have any suggestions on how to increase home ownership in Black and brown communities?
Sure. One of the things I think we have to do, it goes back up to the boarded up homes, but we've got to use our code to help clean up all areas of the city. We have to make it look viable, okay? If you have a beautiful house next door and you take care of that meticulous lawn, you make it look good, but yet you've got a boarded up home or a vacant lot next to you, it just brings down your value of your property there. So two things can happen. We need to clean up all areas so that home ownership is desirable for everybody in the Black and brown communities also. But you also need to, maybe we can we need to use our foreclosure powers that we have on these homes. As home rule, we can go in and we can foreclose. We got a land bank that's coming along with the county that'll be great to use that for. But right now we have the ability to foreclose on the home, wipe away the liens, we can do that, and take control, and then get that into somebody that wants to, maybe doesn't have the equity for a down payment, but they can have the working skills to bring that house up to speed. That's something we could do very quickly because we have that ability.
In terms of increasing home ownership with Black and brown communities, I think starting with education about home ownership, which our ECDA department does. COVID-19 has halted a lot of the programming, not only in the city, but everywhere. But we do have education regarding home ownership, what it really takes to be a homeowner, what are some of the ancillary costs of being a homeowner, properly saving. We did institute the home payer down payment assistance program again under our administration, and we partnered with banks to do that. As my opponent mentioned, we have established a land bank with the county, which will allow properties to have their liens and back taxes cleared so that people who want to invest and develop those properties can get them free and clear and do so. We can then enter into a redevelopment agreement and give them some guidelines and a time frame to bring those properties into compliance. And then it goes back to jobs, making sure that Black and brown communities have opportunities to develop skill sets so they can have a sustainable living wage.
Thank you. Mr. Provost, you have the questions to Mayor Armstrong.
What would you consider your greatest strength as a leader, and what area in your leadership style would you like to improve?
I think my greatest strength is my grace and my grit. I have been attacked by some people every day in this community, by people who serve in leadership in our city, on our city council, very unprofessional behavior. We haven't seen this type of behavior before in our country. I was on council with the previous mayor. I obviously had different ideas and ideology, but no one disrespected her in the way that I've endured. I have been gracious. I have demonstrated tenacity and resilience and grit to continue to come to work every day and work hard for everybody in this city, even the people that don't support me, like me, or demonstrate dignity towards me. So I think those are my greatest strengths. And in
Alderman.
terms of, you said improving something?
Yeah, what area of your leadership style would you like to improve?
I am a workaholic. I feel like because I'm the first, I have to work twice as hard. I've been trained like that since I was a little girl. My parents raised me like that. And so I feel comfortable enough with my team now that we've got a strong team in place. And I know that they are experts in their fields, and I trust them. And I would like to I would like to step back a little bit.
Alderman Curtis.
I believe my strengths is my business ownership. I've owned several different businesses, so I understand the difficulty of paying bills and making hard decisions when tough economy hits, when you have a downtrend and you've got to make those hard decisions to keep things balanced instead of just continuing to spend. My financial abilities, but I think probably the biggest strength is, I've been doing it since 1992, is my ability to work with other leaders in the community and not have to have the credit. Let somebody else have the credit. I just want to get the job done. But reaching out with other governmental agencies, other business leaders, and getting ideas and talking to them. And, if you do the job and you'll get the credit 20 years after you retire. Probably my weakness, being able to delegate responsibilities better. I like to be hands-on an awful lot. I see my wife nodding right now, so she knows exactly what it is. I need to delegate a little bit better.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, you have the question. Alderman Curtis.
I am very fascinated by the River Walk project. I'm fascinated by the river. I bought me a boat, so you know I love the river. But my question is there a private financing? I know that there's city financing in various ways. Is there a private financing at this point? And what is the cost so far to the city?
The mayor's probably going to be able to answer these better than me, but I do not believe there's any private dollars that have been raised yet. I believe it's all been through grants and through money from the city of Kankakee for engineering. I do believe that the riverfront, taking advantage of that is a great asset for our community, and we need to work on it. But I also believe we need to do small tasks on it. We've done some stuff along Kennedy Drive. We've done stuff along River Street where the dam tap is. I still go old school, sorry. Where the FEMA grant was, and where the new proposed area by Schuyler and River is. We're all over the board. I'd like to see us concentrate on one area where the FEMA grant is. We already own that land. We could have put a walking path in there and a bench and some small items just to keep it going forward. But the answer to your question is, how much has the city spent on it so far? It depends what you want to lump in there, but I would say it's probably $300,000 to $500,000, but I could be off on that.
Thank you. Mayor Armstrong.
I don't have the exact number with me, but when I became the mayor, the FEMA grant had not had any type of action on it on West River Street for a year. And that was because of the old way of doing business. The person in charge of that department was also in charge of 2 other departments, which is not a smart way to run the government. You can't run the government like you run your personal business. You have to have the staff here to do the things that you want to get done. So we did an extension on the FEMA grant, and we finished that project out. The way that grants work, there's different agencies that provide grants. Sometimes a grant cycle will open, and it gives us an opportunity to acquire land acquisition. So we did that on East River. There was a different grant tied to Kennedy Drive. But we have had people from the community donate. Dave Barron is an attorney. He's donated his legal time preparing documents and such for the riverfront. We established a 501c3, which will allow us to collect contributions from the community. It took time to do that and get that through the IRS. The Franco family also donated property to the city.
Thank you. Ms. Morales, you have.
Excuse me, need to get a cost. Do you have a cost from the
I don't
city?
have an exact number.
have a
To
close-
do the plan, it was about 300, was about 340, do you remember?
The overall plan,
The master plan.
335, I believe.
Okay, so about 340,000 for the Riverfront Master Plan, yeah. We've had some grant matches as well, Mr. Taylor. So if we secure a grant, some of the grants require a 20% match, that type of thing. So probably, I would guess about 500,000. You're welcome.
Ms. Perales, question to Mayor Armstrong.
This question is in regards to Washington Street. I know there's been a lot of investments on Schuyler, but then when you move off of Schuyler, you see other mom and pop businesses struggling, and some have expressed the lack of lighting at night. Are there any plans to help some of those local businesses in terms of lighting? It seems like a simple request for the city of Kankakee, where it could just not only help East Washington Street, but other areas.
Absolutely. And there's some investment that will be going on there as well. I have worked with a developer out of Milwaukee that's going to be working on the Pope Brace building. They've also have purchased the Midland States building downtown. In terms of specifically providing additional lighting, that's something that I would like to see happen. I would assume the community would be in support of that as well. We do get calls sometimes in some of the neighborhoods that the streets are dark. It is an additional cost to add poles and such. And so we are in a position right now where we can do that for the community. But
Alderman-
we have to all agree, or get majority to agree, and the council has to approve it.
Alderman Curtis.
So lighting, yes. Lighting is one of those things that it helps with public safety also. So it is a key thing that needs to be done. But it comes with a cost. And so one thing we did talk about on our 6th Ward Zoom meeting the other night is everything is going to LED lighting now. And I feel like the new LED lighting is not as bright. It seems to be a little softer, more poignant right there instead of outflowing. I get it's more cost effective. I get it lasts longer for maintenance, but it doesn't seem to be as bright as we've had with the old conventional lighting. So maybe new technology isn't always the greatest thing, but I would like to see new lighting, not even on Washington Avenue. I'd like to see extended into the neighborhoods, like Coach Light has done in the Riverview Historic District. That was done basically on the bonding of the areas there. The city bonded the money, and then there was a small, I believe it was anywhere from $15 to $20 a year for about 10 years to have that paid off on those tax bills only in the residents in that area. And then there's a maintenance fee. I'd like to see that incorporated into more areas in the city of Kankakee,
Thank you,
not only for
Alderman.
lighting, but for public safety.
Mr. Provost, you have the question to Alderman Curtis.
Okay. We have concrete examples of cooperation amongst many governments here: wastewater treatment, tourism, mass transportation. In what areas would you push for greater regional cooperation?
One I'd like to see, think about, because it was on the capital list, is the fire department, and I'll call the hook and ladder truck. Every department seems to have one of those right now, and no offense to our area, but we don't seem to have, we're not downtown Chicago with high rises everywhere. So if there was a way that instead of the city of Kankakee purchasing one, maybe there's a way we can purchase one with the village of Bradley, and it's shared, because I don't think it's used that often. Or maybe there's one with Mantino and Bourbonnais, and there's one with Bradley and Kankakee. That could be an option that we could do there. I'd also like to see potentially, even with our township board, Kankakee Township, they maintain some roads. There's very little roads that are maintained anymore within the township. I think it's less than 9 miles or 10 miles or somewhere in there. Probably wouldn't take much for the city of Kankakee to take that on their backs, and one less taxing structure for the residents.
Thank you. Mayor Armstrong.
I actually spoke about that tower truck when I ran for mayor, because they are very, very expensive. And I know there's uncertainty in Bradley. I know they had, I believe their fire chief left, so I don't know if it's feasible at this time, but I certainly would continue to be open to that. I spoke about this 4 years ago, if we could share that in some way. In terms of other partnerships, I think we can partner with KCC and CSL. We have a developer from Milwaukee, the J. Jeffers Group, who purchased Midland States Bank. They plan to turn that into a business incubator space. And I like to see some of the government entities come into that space, like the Tourism Bureau. They don't have we don't have an office for that right now. Our executive director is working out of her home, like a lot of people are. But they also are planning to build apartments on the lot. And if we can have CSL perhaps lease a certain number, or KCC for students, a lot of their athletes stay with people or in apartments and hotels. If they can lease a certain number, I think that would be a great partnership.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, questions to Mayor Armstrong.
Do all of the city department heads live within the city? And if not, do you believe there should be a resident requirement?
The quick answer is no, they do not. And this was a decision that was made many years before I became the mayor. I would like to see our public safety departments live in the city of Kankakee. About 80% of fire and police live outside of the city. I grew up here as a little girl, and I would recall seeing police officers like Upton and Pops Thomas in the grocery store, or at games and those types of things. And I think it strengthens the community when they live here, and the residents feel like they care about the community when they choose to live in the community. So I do support residency in the city of Kankakee. I also am pragmatic that some of the skill sets that we need to run our municipality, we don't have a pool of talent. So when you get into some of those other positions like engineering firms and some of those other skills, those high quality skills, we may have to hire outside of the community.
Ms. Morales, you have the questions to Mayor Armstrong.
No, Mr. Curtis.
I'm sorry. Alderman Curtis.
No problem. The answer is, as the mayor mentioned, is no, not all the department heads live in the city of Kankakee. Ideally, that would be the ideal thing, but I don't think that happens in any of the municipalities. I think what you need is the best qualified person when you're talking department leadership who can be there. I would like to see it be somebody within the Kankakee County, because again, they're spending their dollars. They may live in Bourbonnais, but they're spending their dollars in restaurants in Kankakee along that line. But the answer to your question is we need, in the department leadership, you got to make sure you have the most qualified person that can do the job.
Thank you. Ms. Morales, Alderman Curtis, please.
My question is, do you support TIFs and why?
100%. I've been utilizing economic incentives since I started in 1991 in commercial real estate. As long as they're used properly, I'm all for them. Basically, TIFs, in my opinion, have to meet 2 or 3 criteria. When somebody wants to apply for TIF funding, it needs to create real estate taxes, it needs to create sales tax, it needs to create jobs. As long as it meets at least 2 of those 3 criteria, I think it's ideal. The one thing that I don't like using TIFs for is we're using them right now to pay for consultants and daily operations of the city of Kankakee. I believe TIFs should be used for economic development, infrastructure, and gaining jobs, sales tax, and real estate taxes. And that's their ideal source, and you have to have them. I talked about this 8 years when I ran for alderman. If you don't have them, other municipalities do, and they will attract the jobs because businesses are seeking TIFs and developers are seeking them. And if you don't have them in play, you will lose out to your surrounding neighbors.
Thank you, Alderman Curtis. We want to thank our candidates.
Are you going to let me answer that question? I think you're tired, Mr. Page.
I think I am. Let's go to Mayor Armstrong.
Okay. Do I support TIFs? Yes, we have.
Wow.
Was that the question?
Yes.
Okay. We have established a number of TIFs, and they are a tool that allows us to work with developers. So, for example, TIF 8, which is exit 308 where the Hilton was, there was no economic development in that TIF for 10 years. And when Tractor Supply came, they had their package in place, but they were short about $500,000. And so we were able to take money out of TIF 8 to bring that project into the city of Kankakee, and that's an appropriate use for it. We differ on philosophy in terms of TIFs. We talked about experts. Our previous legal team drained our general fund, using the general fund to pay for things that were TIF-eligible expenses under the law. I consulted with a TIF attorney that specializes, that's their expertise in TIF, and so we now pay for TIF expenditures with TIF dollars. And my opponent pays the bills with those dollars because it's appropriate to do so. So I will continue to utilize TIFs in a way that we are allowed to do so. We don't pay, we pay fees that are invoiced tied to economic development with TIF dollars. We don't pay salaries with TIF.
Thank you. We want to thank our candidates for their participation tonight and their willingness to run for the respective office. We want to thank our panel, and we want to thank our Political Action Committee and Mr. Steve Bertrand. So each candidate have a 3-minute closing statement. We're going to start with Alderman Curtis, followed by Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you. I'd like to again thank the Kankakee County NAACP for providing this forum tonight, and I'd like to thank Mayor Wells-Armstrong for joining me here tonight. Tonight you've heard many answers to your questions, and now it's time to move our city forward in the right direction by improving public safety, providing true financial transparency, enhancing our economic development that will produce more industries and jobs, utilize our code enforcement, and become one community that is united for the betterment of Kankakee. Regarding economic jobs is one thing that I have done very well at. In fact, in the last 3 years, over 500,000 square feet has been located in the city of Kankakee in the north and east side of Kankakee. Companies like Spikeball, Crown Cork and Seal, AF Flanders, Turnkey Environmental, and many others that are providing over 100 jobs and tax base to the city of Kankakee. My expertise in that shows that I know how to make that happen, and I will bring that forward as mayor. The mayor had said on the stage 4 years ago and said that she was the only one and the only candidate that could make things positive for the city of Kankakee. 4 years ago, she said the greatest issue facing the city of Kankakee was public safety. In fact, her quote was, "Safety is a human need. If you don't feel safe in your community, that is a huge problem." I ask you, Kankakee, do you feel safe? The city has not moved forward, but backwards. Under the mayor, shootings and victim shots has rapidly increased each of the past 3 years, and after nearly 4 years, the shooting statistics are more than double annually before she became mayor. We are currently spending more of the hard-earned tax dollars than we have in the past. We lease more vehicles than are needed, spend nearly double on legal, planning, and engineering, and most of these dollars are headed north and spent with out-of-town firms. Why not keep the money local, engage businesses and firms in the county? These are the individuals that live here, sponsor our Little League teams, contribute to social service agencies, and spend their money with our local retail establishments. What she has been provided with is a lot of empty promises, infighting, lack of transparency, and it took an alderman like myself to figure out how to lower our property taxes for our residents. We do need to start working together for the city that we love. Let's make our families feel safe in their neighborhoods, and I will continue to bring more economic development into the communities on the north and east side, along with other areas in the town that will result in even more jobs. I will show you how a mayor should work with his community partners, and I will also show you resources and work with them for resources instead of fighting with them. We need to build our city up together and show off our diversity, unity, and let everyone know that the city of Kankakee is the best place to live, work, visit, and raise a family. I'm asking for your vote on April 6th for me to be the mayor of the city of Kankakee. May God bless you, our city, and our first responders, and I appreciate you having me here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Armstrong.
At the end of the day, this job is about the people we are elected to serve. I want to tell you about one of those special people. 4 years ago, I met Nakiah Jones, who lost her 13-year-old son, AJ, to gun violence in our 7th Ward. He was known as a good kid, a smart student, and a great athlete. Summer 2016, the Kankakee JCs retired AJ's jersey at Beckman Park. At that time, I was volunteering in concessions and running for mayor. The coaches asked me to speak, and I told Nakiah that I would keep in touch with her. I have reached out to Nakiah when we have had shootings among youth and asked for her advice in supporting families who have lost loved ones to gun violence. I invited her to consult with me about the Kankakee United Coalition. Over these past 4 years, Nakaya and I have shared tears and held many conversations, offering one another support when there is loss in our community. I know how hard she has worked to move forward and provide for her daughter. And it's families like hers who are on my mind when I go to work every single day. For Nakaya, I am grateful because she has provided guidance to me in my role as mayor. Amid the relentless attacks, accusations that I don't care about violence in our community and the well-being of our city, Nakaya helps me stay focused on what matters. What matters is connecting with the people and meeting their needs no matter where they are in Kankakee. This election is about the direction of our city. Will we continue to move Kankakee forward or return to the old way of doing business that failed us for so long? Will we support a leader who actively builds coalitions across this country or choose someone who is aligned with the people in our community who tear us down? Will we choose someone whose agenda looks to lift all in our city or conserve the status quo? Will we choose a leader with a record of results or choose someone whose 9 years in office did not support growth in this city? Will we have someone who holds people like Nakaya in their heart every day or only think of people like her during election cycles? Will we have a bold vision and real results where a kid like Nakaya's daughter, despite living through tough times, can grow up and become the mayor if she chooses to do so? I believe in Kankakee, and I believe we will make the right choice on April 6th in spite of the obstacles we may face. I ask for your support to elect me to continue serving as mayor of our great city, and together we will move Kankakee forward. Thank you.
Again, we want to thank our candidates, our panel, and the audience for taking time out of your busy schedule. Again, early voting have started, and again, vote for the respective candidate of your choice, Tuesday, April 6th. Thank you.